Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Rotary meeting of Monday, December 6th. And to start off today's meeting, I'm going to call upon Ian Davies to introduce our guest speaker. Ian.
Yes, thanks, Don. It's a pleasure for me to introduce our guest speaker for today, my good friend, Bernie Gilmore. I first came to know Bernie many years ago as a musician, singer-songwriter, and community volunteer for Home County Folk Festival. And Bernie has done really well with his music career, released 2 solo albums and an album as a member of the group Scallywag. But later, I learned of Bernie's work championing humanitarian causes, both here and abroad. And many of us first became aware of the severity of the mid-1980s famine in Ethiopia by the international release of the fundraising anthem, We Are the World, in 1985. But Bernie and his London team were already making plans to go to Ethiopia to assist at the front lines of this tremendous human catastrophe. Bernie volunteered with the Kinsmen African Medical Relief Team, KAMR for short, in Ethiopia, and worked subsequently as the London team's field director. For a 12-year period, he led projects in integrated rural development in Africa, and in 2001 was awarded the Louis Perinbam Award for Excellence in International Development that recognizes Canadian individuals and civil society organizations that are doing impactful and innovative work that addresses development challenges and improves the lives of the world's most vulnerable. And there are times in our lives when people might say to us, you should write a book about that. Well, Bernie has done just that in his new book, Heart of Africa, and in so doing has shared some of his amazing stories and experiences. David McDonald of Canada's David McDonald, Canada's emergency coordinator for African famine and former ambassador to Ethiopia, describes Bernie's book as a wonderful, personal, and insightful record of your experience with the London team in Ethiopia, and especially the remarkable adventure, service, and work that you carried out in Camp Bete. Bernie has continued his grassroots work in Africa with the Panafric International Academy, an elementary school in Ethiopia, and with St. Kizita's Church in rural Uganda. Bernie Gilmore's presentation today is titled Heart of Africa, From Emergency Relief to Sustainable Development. Bernie.
Ian, thank you so much for that introduction. That's pretty well the presentation. Yeah, so as Ian mentioned, for a long time, people have told me, these are great stories you have from your work, and you got to put them down. So I did, and don't let anybody fool you. Writing a book is not easy, yeah, but a labor of love, and it's done, and it's out there, and I'm so pleased to have it. And I'm getting such a kick out of reaching former members of Camp London, because that was quite a few years ago, and to find them has been a real chore, but it's great, and the reaction to the book is really good. So yeah, I have a presentation. As Ian mentioned, music is a big part of my life, so I've written some songs that has been inspired by the experience. So that's part of the presentation. And so now, technology don't fail me now. I'm hoping that everything's going to work, and I'll just begin right now. Here we go. Did you hear the news today? Did you turn your heads and hearts this way, or did you look away? People left in drought, there wasn't any doubt, leaving them alone meant they would die again. But that's no way, no. On a particular day in the fall of 1984, when you turned on your television, you thought something had gone wrong with the screen. It appeared what we called fuzzy back then, and when you turned the right dials, it cleared. Well, something had gone wrong, yes, but not with the screen. As you looked closer, you could see a panorama view of thousands of people barely walking. The fuzziness of the screen was caused by a dust cloud from the parched Ethiopian countryside and starving Ethiopians looking for food. By the end of 1984, there was an estimate of some 8 million people at risk of dying from starvation in Ethiopia alone. It was 6 o'clock in Canada. The evening news was on. It was supper time. My plate was full. The Ethiopians didn't even have plates. People reaching out, not knowing if a drought would steal another meal. Did you hear the news today? The Kinsmen African Medical Relief was a team of nurses and doctors from Kingston, Ontario, who decided they wanted to do more than simply donate money to the Ethiopian crisis and actually go there and care for the sick and malnourished. After sending 4 teams of nurses, doctors, and all the supplies that were needed to equip these teams, they ran out of people and money. So, on Friday morning, September the 3rd, 1985, a team of 9 nurses, 1 doctor and myself as administrator left the London, Ontario as Camp London and headed towards Ethiopia. Here is our motley crew. Why, you might say, in raincoats to a drought-stricken Ethiopia? Well, it was because the rains had come, the camp was a bit of a mud bowl, and we were asked to be prepared. So, my journey was now set for what would be a life-altering one, and one that began working with medical teams in a refugee camp and would last for a dozen years, and learning so much about Ethiopia. During that time, our team fed people who were close to death from starvation, treated people with conditions like cerebral malaria and a whole range of tropical diseases, for which we often didn't have all the right medicines. We operated without anesthetics and were constantly amazed at the physical and emotional strength of the Ethiopians. As a Canadian team, we were challenged by living among so many sick people, and we ourselves struggled to stay safe from disease, to avoid infections often caused by simple insect bites, and tried so hard to cope with so much less in terms of equipment and supplies that we took for granted in Canada. 4.5 months, disinfecting 2 whole latrines on a weekly basis, watching hungry hyenas race beside our truck, navigating skinny mountain roads with no guardrails, using a gravity-fed shower made of PVC hose, sleeping in tents, army cots, and bags of intravenous solutions for mattresses, our African water beds, no less. So as Kurt Jensen noted here, the international community was mobilized, and for me, it was working with so many like-minded humanitarians was inspiring, and the inspiration, as noted, has lasted a lifetime for me. And I often think of the gentleness of the Ethiopian people. I think of the gratitude expressed by so many villagers, or in fact anywhere. Thank you for your coming here. Thank you for your time. I see you've left a loving home. I hope you've come in time. Thank you for your risking your precious lives for us. And thank the people in your land for making all this fuss. Sengoleti feta Amasagandela. I will never forget the simple thank you that came from a hotel worker. She simply turned to me in a broken English language. I was convinced it was the only word she said. A simple thank you. It's Canada, I see your flag. What city is your home? Is there a loving family there who let you come alone? And what's the chance you're coming now? We'll save 8 million lives. Did God Almighty send you here, you people of the skies? Sengoleti feta Amasagandela. Sengoleti feta Amasagandela. After 4.5 months, I returned to work at Victoria Hospital, and Kinsman came back to me and asked me if I wanted to go back to Ethiopia, and this time to stay for a year, not the 4.5 months, and build a permanent health station. So I said I would, but not without my family. The first 4.5 months was completely on my own, and I left a 2-year-old son at home, Kevin James. And so we, as a family, we said yes, and we took a year assignment back in the Bete area. We lived in a mud-walled hut for a year. We built a permanent health station and had a fantastic project. You'll see a picture here. This was a water resource. It was a change from the compound over to the village, and we were able to build these stone water towers and assemble a huge water tank on top. This is not a COVID shot of Kevin, although it sure as heck looks like one. Kevin made some real buddies in this little village, and we've got some terrific stories of Kevin. Kevin learned some of the values that were so important to us, and one of the most important one was that of sharing. And when we brought treats home, Kevin would, for example, cut up a chocolate bar and share it with his buddies. And my favorite story is Kevin coming home to the compound one afternoon with his buddy Toiba. Toiba was about the same age as Kevin, and came in her ragged dress as usual, and Kevin brought her into the mud-walled hut that he knew as home and donated a complete set of clothes to Toiba. So there she was, proud as punch, coming up with these new beautiful clothes of Kevin's. And about 20 minutes later, there was a parade of village kids, and Kevin outfitted them as well. So, we had a terrific experience with a 3-year-old son at the time. We never worried about Kevin. He was rambling around the villages, and we'd always know where he was. It was like, you just call his name out, and the villagers would call his name out, and Kevin would appear suddenly out of another mud-walled hut. But during this trip, I guess one of the most profound things for me was living without hardly anything materially. We didn't have a car, we didn't have a home, we didn't have much in terms of any material goods. And I remember one day looking across the compound at the latrine. We had this ventilation improved pit for a bathroom, and thinking I have the least amount of goods, and I'm the most happy. And so we often speak of this, to have the freedom of not being tied down by a house and a car and all the goods. But I really was, and the simple way of life struck us. At the same time we were there, we had an interested group of Londoners in communication with us, and we were able to, at this point, share the vision that we had, which was to work long-term in Ethiopia. And you'll see the villagers on the side of the hill here. We had the unique opportunity to ask them how our Canadians could support their continued efforts in rural Ethiopia. And we designed and was able to put together an organization called Future Forests of London. And we were able to seek great funding from Kizita, 4-to-1 match on the dollar at the time. And we were able to do gardens. You'll see this young lady sitting in a garden of papaya. She was able to work in the gardens during the day and go to school in the afternoon. We had amazing development projects which included gardens for a group of 10 women. Back then, you needed to incorporate what was called WID in any CETA proposal. So we had women in development. We had a group of 16 ladies running gardens for the first time. We had water now available in the village, clean water due to that tanker that you saw. We had this fountain system in place. And for the first time ever in Ethiopia, women were working in the fields helping to plow. And that was traditionally a male job and male occupation. So women were very revolutionary during this time. Then such a neat thing happened when women ran the plows, and they were able to harvest teff, which is an Ethiopian wheat, and sorghum, was that whatever they harvest, they shared a third of it with the poor of the village. So it was an amazing adventure. You're seeing me here in a grove of eucalyptus trees, and we provided the seedlings, and a eucalyptus tree in that part of the world grows very fast, and the fellow who took up the gardening was able to grow these beautiful poles and sell them back to the project after harvesting them. So this is our crew here. We've got a young lady on the right-hand side who was a translator to begin with and received extra funding from Canada and was able to get all her schooling done, and she's now a regional health director in Ethiopia. So the last piece here that I'm so proud to have been a part of is what was called the Panafric International Academy. And it was a small school that began in 2013 with a London Ethiopian fellow by the name of Mesfin Atale. Mesfin took his whole family of 5 children back to Ethiopia. I was there with him in 2013 and did a lot of the grassroots of the school. And when it began, the elementary school had some 30 kids in pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. And one of the mandates of the Pan-Afric school was to bring in children who were destitute. So a certain percentage of the children in the elementary school were taken from the street, and I guess that my favorite story is the one of Emmabet. You'll see her here just before she came to the Pan-Afric school. And parts of this song now will tell her story. Sitting on the side of the street with calloused and dusty feet, she hides behind her worn-out, tattered dress. It's a quiet, sensible life, just hiding by a smile. Without a dream, it seems so meaningless. Emmabet, no time for regrets. Can you see your future on the rise? Emmabet, lovely with your smile. Can you learn to dream with open eyes? Emmabet, Emmabet, Emmabet. So so pleased to have been a part of the Panafric School, and tremendous success bringing young kids like Emabet off the streets and into the school. And as Ian mentioned, the last project that I was involved in involved St. George's School that funded a church in St. Kizita's parish. And this beautiful school here now, in the year 2000, had some 800 children. And so we've gone from 30 to 800. And it's just so gratifying to see these kids, and they were, seeking funding to get to school, to get off the street. And just kudos to Mesfin and all the work that he did. So, I've been so pleased to be a part of so much work in Ethiopia. So, the three areas that I've been involved in have been the medical relief, the long-term development, and future forest, of course, and the school. So that's the presentation today. I'm going to end it here with my song called Heart of Africa. I appreciate the fact that we've been able to do this, and that you folks have been able to listen in. She was beautiful in her dress from ancient Africa, smiling every morning like the sun. She sang her song that echoed through the village. She sang so sweet. Heart of Africa, land of burning sun, rivers cooling as they reach the sea. Heart of Africa, sky of Southern Cross, mountains covered with the eucalyptus tree. Thought I'd be the one to make a difference. Thought I'd be the one to bring them home. But somehow in the giving there's receiving, so bittersweet. Heart of Africa, land of burning sun, rivers cooling as they reach the sea. Heart of Africa, sky of Southern Cross, mountains covered with the eucalyptus tree. Mountains covered with the eucalyptus tree. Well, the technology didn't fail me. It worked pretty well as I wanted it to. So there you have it. Thanks for tuning in today.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Bernie. I'm going to ask you to stop sharing your screen.
Yeah.
We can open the floor for some question and answers, if that's okay with you.
Sure, that's fine.
So if everybody wants to use the raise your hand feature in Zoom, if they have a question for Bernie. And I'm going to start out, is you've covered a lot of the history over the last almost 40 years of Ethiopia. Can you give us a brief update as to what's happening now and what the situation is like?
Yeah, right now it's not too good because the country is in the midst of some civil war. So one of the most northern provinces of Tigray has, fighting for independence as Eritrea did 40 years ago, 30 years ago. And when I was working there, there was a civil war going on, and we were able to carry on as we could, and we always had an evacuation plan. But today it's a little bit more severe, and it's not looking too good. There's atrocities on both sides, the government and the TPLF, Tigrayan People's Liberation Front. So it's not looking too good, and all Canadians, I guess all expatriates, have been ordered out of Ethiopia. Ethiopia has a history of civil war, of warlike culture. And hopefully this is going to end in peace. Hopefully the states will be able to make some inroads. They've been there on numerous occasions trying to conduct peace talks with the Ethiopian government and the TPLF. So we're hoping for the best. We're hoping that aid organizations like Médecins Sans Frontières and other humanitarian organizations can return to Ethiopia and carry on the good work that they're doing.
Malcolm.
Yeah, what a land of contrast, Bernie, when you consider that Addis has, streetcars and subways and skyscrapers. Yeah. And yet you were in that village where there's all these lovely, they really are beautiful people smiling. And so my question really is, did you get to visit the carved churches, the medieval carved churches out of the rocks?
I did. It's a place called Lalibela.
Yeah.
And some people claim this is the eighth wonder of the world. You go up to this rural area, it's probably about 8 hours north of Addis Ababa, the capital, and you visit these churches that are carved completely out of stone and are completely geometrically accurate. They're amazing. They're like it's a perfectly formed church out of a piece of rock. It done some 900 years ago, and it's just mind-blowing. They took their Christianity pretty seriously back then.
Yeah. Huh. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
John, you have a question.
Bernie, thanks for that update. Many of us will have almost forgotten that tragic stories of the 1980s, and the contribution you made to the remedies is made for a really great presentation today. I think you will have experienced, as we have in Rotary with international development, the need not to put any undue burden on those communities into which we go to provide for the means of international sustainable development. I'm wondering how you sustained yourself and what reaction you got from the community when you first went there. And secondly, can you tell us something about the long-term impact of the sustainable work that you have told us about today?
Sure, yeah. I will never forget Dr. Tamrat, who came to our camp during the relief days, and he stood on a platform there. We had a small piece of concrete, and Dr. Tamrat said, "Please don't give us more than we can handle." And I'd never heard that from an Ethiopian, because international aid was pouring in like crazy back then, and the ports were filled with donated foods, and I just knew that we had to get there and save lives. But for myself and for our group of people, Future Force people, it was a learning experience. And we had the unique advantage of being able to talk directly to the villagers. So we were able to say, what is it that you need? So we don't want to impose aid here. We want to give you what you need and only what you need. And of course, one of the first reactions was, send us doctors, nurses, and tractors. And we were really aware, especially within that year that I spent with my family, that it's very easy to create a dependency. And when you bring in lots of meds, then you're bypassing their own healthcare system. We were very aware of that. And it took us some learning and some being able to say no and work. We had one of the greatest advantages was that we worked with Save the Children US. So Future Force did the fundraising. We designed the project. We hired the staff. But Save the Children US had an operational presence in Ethiopia. So they used Ethiopian workers, development workers, field workers, to carry on the work. So that was one of the biggest reasons why we were able to do work that was sustainable. So all of the projects that we designed were at their level. For example, that water tower that you saw used all local materials. We hired a local stonemason to do it. And when we brought the water from our compound to the village, we investigated the best way to do that. And the best way was a submersible electric pump. And then again, it was their project, and they had to pay for water. It was 5 cents for a clay jug, and so it was completely theirs. And so I think Ian mentioned it was about a 10-year period that Future Forest worked, and we would go every year. We would send people monitoring the progress. So again, we were directly in touch with the people, and the people knew us. I mean, they were our friends. So they were not able to pull the wool over our eyes, and we weren't able to pull the wool over theirs. It was just like working with a community in London, Ontario, where you're not trying to impose, you're not trying to throw things at them, but you're asking them, what is it that you need and how can we best help? So we learned. I mean, we read, we used experts in the field on development. And so we tried to do everything at their level, and I think that was one of the keys to the success. We began with a small community of 5,000 people, and eventually it was a whole range of villages within the Bete area of some 25,000 people. And the input was at about $15 per year, so that's $15 per year per person. And we were able to change the lives of the rural Ethiopian with that little funding because we worked at their level. And so just to answer the last part of your question, in 2013, I went in to help Mesfin design this elementary school. And I was there with my other son, who had never been to Ethiopia. We'd come from the Uganda project, and Ethiopia borders on Uganda, so we were able to travel to Ethiopia. And I took Sean up to Bete. And it was mind-blowing to see the development there. So many of the trees that we had planted were large, huge trees. Some of our innovations didn't work out, but it was trial and error. So the village of Bete is now it's almost a city. It's somewhere between a town and a city. And they have a Ethiopian government Ministry of Health run health station. And they were planning for a high school, and the city is completely electrified. So I hope that answers the question. Thanks for posing it.
Good response. Thank you.
And Ian.
Yes, I just wanted to let everybody know that Bernie does have his book, Heart of Africa, available for $20, and he'd be happy to get it to you, personally deliver probably, and sign it for you. So if you could maybe share your email in the chat, Bernie, and
sure,
and then people could reach out to you. But if there's time, Don, there was one story in Bernie's book that I thought was very special and quite eye-opening, and it's the story of the young boy H, who went away from Bete to get medical assistance and cure, and he came back to his family. So maybe Bernie could just quickly recount that story.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ian. It's we try and do the best, but we really don't know as Westerners, and as coming from an affluent country as Canada, we don't know how to deliver third world healthcare for the most part. And this young fellow was a mistake. He was diagnosed in the village of Bete with a heart condition, and we had the money, we have the resources, so we took him back to Canada, and he went through some heart surgery in Ottawa, and was adopted by a family, and immediately took on a lot of the culture and the ways, and was treated just like such a special kid. And the plan was to send, his name is Hussein, so the plan was to send him back to Ethiopia, which they did. and he arrived in Bete, you could just imagine, with a clean pair of jeans and new running shoes, and was rejected by his family. I remember his mother coming to me and said, you know, don't leave Hussein here. He's not Ethiopian anymore. And they know, his mom and dad both knew that he would have such a better life in their eyes back in Canada. So, oh, the poor guy, you know, he struggled. I mean, to try and fit back into a mud-walled hut after living in Ottawa was a real struggle. And eventually Hussein was adopted by a Canadian helicopter pilot. And he was fit into not a rural family, but a city family, not too far from Addis. So, I mean, he survived, but, you know, at the peril of us trying to do so much good when we really don't know how to do the good. And, man, it's such a tempting mistake, because doctors, you know, as doctors, we're trying to do the best, and we know how to save lives. We know how to do heart surgery. But heart surgery, unfortunately, was not at the time an affordable thing in the Bete area. That part of Ethiopia was suffering from a huge drought, and the people were just barely getting back on their feet. Yeah, that's a story in the book as well.
Are there any more questions? It appears not. So, Bernie, I would like to thank you. You probably didn't have the opportunity to read the chat messages as they went by, but
no, I didn't.
You won the best presentation to the Rotary Club of London via Zoom. We loved your presentation today. It's not often that you get a presentation with great photos plus live music. I think I mentioned to you our attempt at live music a year ago. And
yeah. Well, it's great. Thank you for that feedback. You were the inaugural try at this. It's the first time I presented it anywhere, so I'm glad technically it worked out, and I'm so glad that it was well received. Thanks for the opportunity.
Wonderful. This is the first try. Wow.
Yeah. I'll be talking to Ian afterwards. I'm sure he'll have some feedback for me.
You need to take this on the road, because it is definitely a subject that will be of interest to many organizations.
Oh, great. That's good to know. Thanks for that feedback.
But thank you very much. And in recognition of your presentation to our club today, a contribution has been made to the Polio Plus campaign of the Rotary Foundation to immunize 50 infants against polio. So because of you, Rotary is now one step closer to a polio-free world. Thank you very much.
Terrific. My pleasure. And thanks once again. I won't be able to join the chat after this. I've got a music gig. I've got to head out and do some music for a party this afternoon. So I'm going to have to get ready for that. But thanks anyway for the opportunity to join.
Thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
So everyone, we will continue with the rest of our meeting. The first item is our hybrid holiday dinner next Monday. Another quick announcement from the Satellite Club. They are still selling tickets for their beer for a year. If you would like one, you can contact them on the Facebook page, or they will have tickets at the holiday dinner next week. You will just need to bring some money, and they would be glad to sell you a ticket. So the other fundraisers from the other Rotary clubs in the city, the Rotary Club of London South is doing their heritage Christmas ornaments in pewter. I think we've talked about this once or twice before. They are available online, and I believe that Jerry also has them at the Marienbad. And then the Rotary Club of London East is doing a Scottish meat pie fundraiser for one of their international projects. The information is available on their Facebook page, and I believe on their website. Other announcements. Does anyone else have an announcement?
Yes, Don, it's Rick here. I'm sorry to have to report to the club that our bingo that was scheduled for Tuesday, December the 7th has been canceled. The Bingo Association, or the hall, has now canceled they've resumed Wednesday bingos, but they haven't resumed Monday and Tuesday. So though we lost the one in October or November, we've lost this one, and our next bingo is not going to be until February. We're trying to find out, even though we were ready and willing to work the bingos, whether, because we're one of the charity sponsor groups, whether we still are eligible to receive a share of the proceeds that are generated at bingos. And I'll report back further on that once I know. But I guess the good news in that is at least they've added another day into running bingos. So let's hope by the new year that they're back where they're closer to full schedules.
So I did not see Diane join us, but a quick reminder to sign up. There are still spots open on December 24th and 31st if you are willing and able to donate blood. As promised last week, I will be there from the 11 to 12 during the Rotary hour on the 24th. You get to spend time with me, and then I will go in and donate blood, and then hopefully get my cookies before I go home. The December 31st is when Diane will be there, and you can hang out with her. And same deal, you get cookies at the end and you get to go home. A few quick reminders before we wrap up our meeting. Our meeting next week will be at 6 p.m. At the Marienbad. You will need to register using the email that was sent out. There will not be a meeting at noon. Our next meeting after that will be on January the 10th, 2022. The Satellite Club meeting at the beginning of this month is tomorrow night. They will be doing a working meeting preparing their packages for YFC to distribute on the bus. Our club board meeting, there will be a board meeting 5 p.m. on Wednesday, December the 15th. And as always, there will be a cocktail hour tomorrow at 5 p.m. and the coffee clutch Thursday at 10:30 a.m. And that is everything for our meeting today. Thank you very much, everyone. A reminder that we in Rotary serve to change lives, and have a great week. We'll see you next week.